I really appreciate an invitation here to speak to everyone. It was a nice meet you. I'll hold it.
Let's give it to you again.
Put the volume up?
Yeah, there's no volume. Let's see. Somehow it's...
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll use this.
Okay.
Okay, well, thanks very much for having me. I enjoyed the afternoon. We had a nice crowd there then, and I'm really surprised there's so many people turn out to hear World War II stories. Most of the places I go, there's not quite this many. So you really have a nice organization going here. At any rate, I was a bombardier, as you know, or maybe you don't know. This is a plane I flew. It's a B-17. It's not my airplane here, but it was loaned to me for this demonstration. I used to be a bombardier right in the nose of the ship. These are the two guns I'm in, and a lot of hairy missions. I'll talk about some of the missions in a little while. I'm from Philadelphia. I was born in 1922, and my earliest recollections was my father with his friends, and they were all World War I veterans, and they were sitting around in our living room talking about some of their experiences. And I was a little fella. I used to listen to it. I was really intrigued by it. None of them that I recall were flyers, but I did watch some of the silent movies where they had airplanes, the Spads and some of the other airplanes of World War II. And boy, that intrigued me. I really wanted to be a flyer. And of course, we weren't in war at that time, so it was just a dream. At any rate, like I said, I lived in Philadelphia. I graduated in 1940. The war had started in Europe at that time, and as a result, we knew we were going to go. We had to register for the draft, and I imagine a lot here remember the draft. And I didn't want to be drafted because I wanted to fly, and they won't draft you to the Air Force. You had to have 2 years of college. So I was a little young anyway at the time, and my parents wouldn't sign for me, so I had a job at Sun Shipyard. It's not far from here. I was a sheet metal worker, and I was there from right after the war started in Pearl Harbor, and I was there until about September of the year. I started the year before, at the end of the year. And I then decided I wanted to fly, and the only way I could get in that Air Force was by going to college. And I started at college. I entered college in 1942, and in October, I took the test, the Air Force test, to get into cadet training, passed it, and the next thing you know, I was sworn in to the I guess it was reserves at that time, but we were called active duty in February of 1943. And I really was happy about going. I was in the branch I wanted to, and we were headed for Florida, which was great. It was summer, it was winter time, and here we were going to Florida. Not everyone has that chance. Anyway, I had my basic training there, and it was all the fellows that were parading had their hats on, and they were all sunburned. It was just a bar there where they were sunburned, and everyone you knew they were in the drilling when they had that suntan. At any rate, I was there until July. From there, we went to San Antonio, to Rock Island, Illinois, and that's where I took my pre-flight training. And we had a chance to fly a single-engine plane, and it was really fun. I enjoyed that. I did very well in that, and they recommended me to continue my flying. And at that point, I thought for sure I was going to be a pilot. We ended up going to San Antonio, where that's was our qualification, whether we were going to pass the test for training in that. Well, I did very well in it, and I was qualified for pilot training. Just about that time, the commanding officer made an announcement that everyone was applying for pilot training, no one for anything else, for bombardier or navigator, and they really needed them. There was also another thing that I was 6'2", and They didn't take a person to fly a fighter plane. That's what I wanted to be in, if you were over 6 feet. So I knocked that out. I didn't particularly want to be a bomber pilot. I just couldn't visualize myself sitting in the seat for 7 or 8 hours, and I decided to switch over to bombardier, which I was really happy about. I had a great vantage point of the entire war from the air. It was good. I had a camera with me when I left for service, and consequently I was able to take pictures from that spot. I have a whole bunch of pictures. I took about 2,200 feet of film while I was there. No one told me not to do it, and I didn't ask if I could. So they didn't tell me no, and then I have a guilty feeling. I get in trouble. But at any rate, I ended up taking pictures on most of our missions. I had a camera. It was a Bell & Howell 16 millimeter camera. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I finished my training at the pre-flight and ended up in bombardier school in Ellington Field. That was the pre-flight. The other one was the qualification. And over there, I had a dream that my father died, and it really upset me because he was never sick or anything. He wasn't old. He was 51 years old. So what happened is that for 2 weeks I just felt uncomfortable. But 2 weeks later, October 30th, 1943, I just didn't feel, I felt down in the dumps this particular day. Went into Houston with a lot of friends, figured I'd snap out of it, but the whole day there I was uncomfortable. I ended up going back to the base early. I mean, normally I'm out maybe all night, depends on the situation. But at any rate, I came back to the base about 9:30, which was really early. It's a shank of the evening, actually, with the bands and everything, USO dances. But I come back and there were two fellows sitting on the steps of the barracks, and they told me that they wanted me at the commanding office. I said, "What's the matter?" He says, "I don't know. They just told us to tell you when you come here." So I went over there, and there were the commander was there and two other officers, and he said, "We want you to apply for an emergency furlough." That's all he said. So I said, "What's the matter? What happened?" He says, I don't know. Someone I think is sick, but he didn't spell it out. But he says, "You can leave the first thing in the morning." So I packed up my things, I packed them up, and locked up my belongings. And in the morning I went to the flight office there and registered. And I got a plane, it was a Navy plane as a matter of fact, from there to Pensacola. I don't know why I went to Pensacola because there were no other planes out there. And to take a train, that'd be a good day on a train. So I got on there hoping that maybe I'd get a ride. I just got to the base, and we pulled in. There was a C-40, and the pilot was back just getting ready to leave. I waved to him, and he stopped, and I yelled to him if there's room for one more. He said, "Yeah." So I went in and registered for that flight. That was going to Washington. Ended up when that plane landed in Washington, and at the end of the month, it was October now 31st. I didn't have a penny on me because the end of the month everyone's broke. Is that right? Yeah. And I ended up coming home, but I was they met me at the train station, and I still didn't know what was the matter. What happened? Turns out that first what I saw there with all the relatives was my mother, and the look on her face, I knew it was my father. What happened? My uncle pulled me aside. My father's brother told me he passed away. Everyone was broken up. Well, at any rate, the way it worked out, and it's absolutely true. If he hadn't died, I would have died. And I'll have to tell you the story as we go along. I didn't know at the time, but I found out later. I ended up staying there. While I was there, I had an accident and I broke my fingers on Thanksgiving. I broke my finger and I was put in a hospital. I was there it was a bad fracture, and I was there for a couple of months. I finally ended up coming back to my base in Ellington Field, Texas. And all the fellows I was training with were gone by then, and I had no idea where they went. I finished my training, went on to San Angelo, Texas, where I finished my bombardier schooling, got my wings and my bars, and from there we went to Plant Park in Tampa, Florida, and that's where we were introduced to the crew. We still didn't know what we were going to fly in, but it turns out we were flying in B-17s, and we were there for a couple of months, and we finally finished our training there, and ended up going to heading up north. Went to Huntersfield first to get our overseas equipment, or the gun, and a lot of things that you needed that they issued for going overseas. Then we went to Camp Kilmer, and we waited there. We were there for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then we ended up going to the Ile de France. Was a French ship. It was operated by the British, and it was a neat trip. I mean, we had a nice stateroom where there was a lot of people. There were 16 people in the room, but there were all branches there: Air Force, Army, engineers. They had other nations involved from Australia. They were in there, and so forth. We ended up landing in Scotland and at Glasgow, and from there we took a train to a town called Stone, and that's a distribution base where all the crews that came in from, you were there? All the crews that came in from the States ended up there, and they were briefed on the customs of the English, and that was interesting. And while there, we're sitting in a room with, I think, about 16 people, about two crews were there. And we didn't fill a whole room up, but there was enough in there. And I was sitting in one of the seats listening, and this fellow kept turning around looking at me, and I didn't know what was wrong, but about a half an hour or so later, when it was over, we started to walk towards the door. And he ends up coming over to me. He says, "I know you from somewheres." I said, "Well, maybe you were stationed where I was stationed." So I named Miami Beach. No. He says, I said, "How about Rock Island, Illinois?" He says, "No." I said, "How about San Antonio?" He says, "No." I said, "How about Ellington Field in Houston?" And the guy turned as white as a sheet. He says, "How could you be here?" So I said, "I don't understand." He said, "Don't you know who I am?" And I looked, and then it came to me. He was a cadet lieutenant, that he was like in charge of us when we had roll call and that type of thing. So I remembered him. He said, "But how could you be here?" I said, "Well, my father died. I was home with furlough, and I broke my finger, and I was in the hospital." He says, "Okay, well, have you heard what happened?" I said, "I had no idea what happened." So he said, "Well, we were shipped out from Ellington Field to Kingman, Arizona. That's where they had gunnery training. And we finished our training this particular day. It was January the 6th, 1944. And we finished our training. He says, I was riding in a Jeep because he was like a cadet lieutenant, so he didn't have to get on the bus. And he was riding in the back of the bus. And the airport is right parallel near a railroad track. So they pulled out of the air base. They stopped at the crossing. They had to go straight ahead, stopped there, and they stopped just about the time that a Santa Fe train was coming by. But before the train reached the intersection, about maybe 100 feet, not even 100, about 100 feet from the intersection, the brakes gave way in that truck. And they all were hit, and they were all killed. The whole squadron were killed. So I really had luck was on my side. My father hadn't died. I would have been on the bus, like God made apples. Well, at any rate, that was the start of some of the strange experiences that I had. We ended up being assigned to the 398 Bomb Group in Nut Hampstead. Nut Hampstead used to be a farm, then it was a fighter base for the British, and then they converted it to, when we got into the war, they converted it to a heavy bomber base. And it's about, like I said, 30 miles from London, and that's where we went. I remember going there, and it was on the base. It was all mud. They used to call it Mud Hampstead. We used to walk on these wooden paths. And at any rate, we were assigned to a Quonset hut. In the hut, there were the officers for 3 crews. And I was in an upper bunk. There was a potbelly stove down below, and it was the dead of the winter, so we needed heat. And I mentioned that the potbelly stove burned coal, if you're lucky enough to get coal. And most of the time they didn't have coal. But how many here flew? Were they in the Air Force? Okay. Were you familiar with the bomb wrappers? The bombs were encased in a wrapper. They called them bomb wrappers. And it was hard as could be, but it protected the bombs from hitting each other. But in order to load bombs off, they took the wrappers off. And there would be a big stack of these bomb wrappers, and they were round. And I as soon as they were delivered, I went out there, and a couple of other fellows from our Quonset hut, and we loaded up on these bomb wrappers. And we cut them up into pieces about maybe 5 or 6 inches long, and broke them up. And that burned so fiercely that when you lit the fire, it would make the potbelly stove red hot. I mean, it was glowing red. It was really hot. And I was in an upper bunk right over that, so I really was comfortable. Okay. Now, this was in December. We arrived here December the 16th. And that was the time that the bulge started, Battle of the Bulge. And we were listening to the news about that. It was also the time that Glenn Miller was not shot down, but he was missing. Does anyone know what happened to him, how he got down? You hear stories about it? Well, what happened, here's what they think. The British, when they would bomb, they would come back. They wouldn't fly a formation. It was like a swarm of bees. They were all over the place. Is that right? And this is what happened. We're flying a formation. They're coming back like this wild. But one of the bombardiers later on told the story that he dropped his bombs over the channel. That they couldn't bomb the target, whatever. And he dropped it over the channel, and it hit a plane. Never really reported it. Just hit a plane. Now they assume it was the one that Glenn Miller was on. So that's what we've happened. At any rate, during the next couple of weeks, we got briefed about the missions and what it was going to be like, talking to others, and we were there at Christmas time, and I remember at Christmas time I was helping set up the Christmas tree, and they flew that day, as a matter of fact, and it was when they came back, they were happy to see a Christmas tree. The weather was atrocious. It was foggy, snow on the ground. It was just bad, cold, everything. So what happened is that that went on for the rest of the week. One of the planes that took off during that spell, as a matter of fact, it was the last December the 30th, and they were taking off. There was ice on the wings. They were supposed to get something to get it off with, but they didn't have anything to get it off with. They used a broom, but it wasn't enough. But they were going to take off no matter what. They ended up taking off, but there was so much weight of the snow and everything that the plane never really got off the ground. Got off the ground, but they couldn't get the lift, and it bounced. And when it bounced, it broke in half, and it kept going. It went into the woods, and a couple of fellows were killed in it. But that was one I remember because there was a big explosion. And I wondered, what the devil was that explosion early in the morning? But that's what happened. Well, that was the end of the year. We flew our first mission on January the 3rd. It was to Cologne. And we're bombing the marshalling yards. These are the yards where the railroads were coming in with troops from Germany. And we ended up bombing those. Now, I didn't know, they talked about flak. Anyone, the word that didn't fly, you know what flak is? All right, well, when a shell explodes, it really explodes, it breaks up in a million pieces. And all those little pieces are called flak. I have a piece of flak here. I'm not going to pass it around. I almost lost it before, but you're welcome to look at it here. It's a small piece of metal like that, and some are bigger and some are smaller. But that's what flak is. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So, at any rate, The mission itself was not bad. We didn't have any flak that day. And I said, boy, if this is the way it's going to be the rest of the tour here, it's going to be a breeze. I'll be home in no time. Didn't pan out that way. The next mission we had was to Cologne again. And again, we didn't have any flak. It was a good mission. I figured, what's the big deal about this, you know? Well, we were going to find out on the next mission. We bombed a city called Spire. Again, it was marshalling yards, and we flew this mission to Spire. Well, from the very beginning, we had a problem. Two of the engines, the inboard engines right here, the two engines in the middle, began to vibrate, and they weren't functioning right. At any rate, we kept going, and then the flak got pretty bad, and the engines were hit, and they began to smoke. Now, I've seen many planes go down where they're smoking no different than ours, but nothing happened. We were told to get our chutes on. We may have to bail out. I wasn't too thrilled about the bailing out. Not that I was afraid to bail out, but when I got on the ground, depending on who captured you, like if the Gestapo captured you, I was a goner. I would be handed a shovel. I have an H on my dog tags, not a C and not a P. When I see an H, you're put aside and you're handed the shovel to dig a grave. That's what they did. Not to everyone, but it depends on who captured you. At any rate, we didn't have to bail out, fortunately. We went over the lines and landed in France in a town called Lyon. And I went back to Lyon about 2 years ago to visit it, to see what the base looked like. It was no base anymore, it was a farm. So that's what happened to most of the bases. They converted into farmland. At any rate, the two engines were smoking. When we landed, one was really on fire. We just got out of there in a hurry. My engineer grabbed a fire extinguisher, and he went out to it and sprayed it, and it took care of the fire. But we were lucky because, you know, the gasoline is right in the wings. And our two engines were smoking, and when there's smoke, there's fire. The heat would do it. So at any rate, we got out of the plane, we were picked up, we were interrogated, and we stayed in the building that housed Rommel when he was there a few months earlier. So it was kind of interesting, that part of it. Getting back to England was another story again, because our plane was shot up. You couldn't use it. It was like a sieve, and we had to get a ride home. So we split up, and I went back with my ball turret gunner and my waist gunner, and we got a ride on another airplane. They flew us to Dover, and we ended up there and landed the plane, and the pilot of that ship went into the officers' club. He said, I'll be back. So we waited. We must have waited 2 hours. And I couldn't believe he's not back. So I went in there, and he was drunk. I mean, he was drinking at the bar. So he was just drunk. Now, there's no way we were going to fly with that guy. So I told the fellows I was with, I said, look, let's get a train. We can catch a train. We didn't have any money. It was the end of the month. It was one of those times. You don't fly with money anyway. You never fly with money. What good is it? You know? Unless it was German bills or whatever. But we didn't go with money. So in England during the war, you could ride on a train, and they wouldn't charge you anything if you were a fighting man. So we got a train ride back to London. First time we were ever there. We went to Rainbow Quarter. Is anyone stationed in London or nearby? Anyone in London? Oh, you remember Rainbow Quarter? Yeah. Okay. Well, we went there, got our lodging, and we got our lodging there, and we got there. It was dark. It was dark, and we decided, well, let's walk around town and see what it's like. But it was dark. You couldn't see anything. But all you do is kept bumping into people. You kept bumping into people. And there were soldiers or civilians, you know. They had the commandos. You ever hear of the commandos? They were on the side there waiting to talk to somebody, among other things. And at any rate, we walked around for a little while, and then we went back to the hotel because we couldn't see anything. We didn't have any money for anything. Couldn't buy a drink or whatever. So we came back, and the next day, we figured, well, we may as well take a train back to the base, and that's what we did. We took a train back, and we got there during the day, and we went back to the barracks, and I said, well, how come you came back so soon? You could have stayed there indefinitely. No one knew where you were. But I didn't even think along those lines. I figured, let's get back. So we did, and we continued our missions. That was the third mission, over Spire. Okay, I'm just briefing through this here. Okay, after each mission, we had to be interrogated by the intelligence officers. We had to tell them what we saw, anything unusual. If we saw any, there's V2s going up in the air, where are they coming from? And I had a log of a lot of things that we saw there. So, and everyone had an input to this. He wrote down all the information. That's how we got the knowledge of where things were. And that's what happened right after it. But as soon as we got into that room, before we got into the room, and we're still walking there with our things, our clothes, you know, we flew with, there was a Red Cross there with either a shot of whiskey or hot chocolate. Well, I was cold, and as much as I like to booze it up, I was cold, and I wanted a hot chocolate. And I had the hot chocolate. Boy, it was great. It was just so good. And you know, from then on, I had hot chocolate. I never had a drink after that. I figured I don't want to break the spell. And I made it back, and I had hot chocolate. I'm going to keep doing that. So those are the little things you do when you get a little superstitious. Okay. We flew to Cologne again, and this mission was a little different than the other ones. It was, I was taking movies. By the way, I took a camera with me, the last thing I did when I left home. And I took this camera, and I had maybe 3 rolls of film, and I went over there with it. No one bothered. I was in my foot locker or whatever, and no one saw it. I understand after the war that we weren't supposed to take movies or pictures. But a lot of people took pictures, and no one actually told me. And I just took pictures. No one stopped me or anything. I'm glad I did. So I have pictures that are very interesting to watch. At any rate, we went to Cologne again, and I thought, well, it's going to be another, we call it a milk run when there's no flak, okay? So we went over it this time, but this time was a little different. We had, there was a lot of flak, not only a lot of flak, because I was taking pictures at the time, and the flak was in front of us, and we're going right through it. You can see the burst getting closer and closer and closer. And one burst was so close that when I took pictures, when I looked at the pictures, it was a huge smoke explosion right there. And at that time, a piece of flak came in, and it went right between my legs. And this piece of plexiglass, it came right from that window, and it knocked the camera right out of my hand. If I hadn't been taking movies at that time, this would have hit my eye. So I was kind of lucky that way. And not only lucky in that way, but if I had been sitting a little lower, I'd been a gelding. Okay. Now, that was over Cologne. We made it back okay after that. Now, on February 3rd, 1945, we were flying to Berlin. I remember going into the briefing room, and everyone was jammed in there. It was about as many people as this, and we're waiting for the officers to give the okay on where we're going. They had a map on there, maybe the size of this, maybe a little bigger, but it was really a map of Europe, with Germany and all the countries around it. And then they had also a set of lines we were going to bomb. So we came in and we looked at that map. Then they came out, and he says, well, we're going to Berlin. And everyone was cheering. They were happy about that. And they showed the path we were going to take to Berlin. Now, what happened on that trip? We had 1,000 planes flying at this one time. 1,000 planes. You ever on a 1,000 plane raid? All over were planes, right? Yep. And that's just the way it was. I took movies of it, so I have all these pictures. They were black and white, and some of them are faded, but in my memory, and I still remember those planes. B-17s, B-24s, there were fighter planes involved, but most of the ones I saw were just the big bombers, just the steady stream of them. There's a story going around that when the war first started, that Goering said, if they ever, they asked him if they're going to be able to bomb us, he says, when they bomb us, you can start calling me Meyer. Well, everyone was calling him Meyer after that bombing raid. That actually is true, though. So at any rate, on the way there, on the way to Berlin, it was a very turbulent day, and the planes were flying information, and there's one plane that was in the middle of the whole group that was getting the prop wash. It was bouncing around, okay, and he dropped down to get away from that turbulence, and he gets a call from one of the planes on the side saying, you're getting close to the plane below you. So what he did, he pulled back on that stick and gunned it at the same time, and the plane took off at about a 45-degree angle and broke in half. It absolutely broke in half. The front part with the pilot and everything went around. The whole thing went around. It was just attached, but it went around and went over a ship next to us and came in, and it hit the underside of the cabin where the navigator was sitting, and it opened up a hole. The navigator fell right through it without a chute. He didn't expect it, and that was it for him. But on that mission, there were figured 10 people. The survivors were the pilot of the plane that was hit, the toggle leader, he was in the nose gunner that where the bombardier was hit, and the tail gunner of the plane that was broken in half. And those are the only survivors of that mission. One person on the ship that was hit, he was the engineer, and he was getting his chute on, and the chute opened up on him, and there was all this silk all over the place, and he was done. He was really done. But at any rate, no one bailed out except those three. And one fellow was in the tail of the ship. He was the tail gunner. And when it broke away from the other ship, the front of the ship, there were two hands that were coming through a hole there that were, he grabbed hold of it, and he held on to it, but the plane was just pulling away, and he couldn't get out. So he went down with the ship. The tail gunner floated down a little ways with the tail, and then he was pulling on the door to open it, and then suddenly it jerked open, and he went out. So the pilot went out. He was bouncing around. The plane was tumbling, but he tumbled right through an opening. That's how he got out. And the same thing happened to the toggle leader, the fellow in the nose. And they were finally captured, just those three. The other ones died on the mission. When they landed, they were captured. Now they're being marched to a train to take them to a camp, a prison camp. And while they're being marched, along comes one of our P-52 planes, sees them, that doesn't realize they're prisoners, and strafes them. And he ends up killing the toggle leader, the one in front, and that was it. So we lost one man there. There were two survivors after that mission. The one that floated down, he eventually died, not during the war, but he died. And the only survivor to this day is the pilot of that ship, and he gave the full account of what happened in the plane. It's kind of interesting to read. In that book, by the way, I have everything I'm telling you is just touching a little bit about it, but the book goes into detail, which is interesting to read. How it was in a plane when it got hit and went down. Okay. Now, there was a barracks next to us that had a pilot, a crew right in there. The navigator, it turns out, was made a lead navigator, and this navigator was an empty space there for someone to fly. Well, they selected me to fly in that ship, and I was going to fly in that ship. I was all set. I got on it, got my maps out, checked the oxygen, And the things I had to do on a plane was not just drop bombs. That was one of the things. But I had to check the bombs, make sure they were hung on the racks properly. If they weren't hung up right when the bombs were released, they could maybe not release. They'd be piled up there. That's a bad situation. We armed every bomb. Once we got off the ground and were flying towards the channel, we armed the bombs. You don't arm it on the base. And arming a bomb means there's a propeller on the nose of that bomb. And there's a cotter pin that goes through that holds it from spinning. Once the cotter pin is out, that's what you call arming the bomb. So all the bombs were armed on this particular mission, and we hadn't taken off yet. We weren't armed at this time. The cotter pin was still there. And what happened, a few minutes before takeoff, over the intercom comes a message for me to go to another airplane. Someone else is going to take my spot. So now I had to pack everything up, go to the other plane. They took me there, and it was dark, cold. I never got to see the pilot. We got on the plane. We used to go into the ship. I used to go in. Right, there's a little hatch right in the front, and we'd swing up to get in there. At any rate, I did that, got my gear out, got the maps and everything, and then we took off. Well, we're flying, and on our way there, something was going on that we weren't aware of. We were flying a low altitude mission. It was like 10,000 feet. We usually fly at 25,000 feet. And what happened is that we were flying low for the sole purpose of drawing up fighter planes so we could attack them. Not the bomb group, but fighter planes. We had 61 P-51s about 25,000 feet up. We were at 10,000 feet. I didn't like flying at 10,000 feet because that's too close for comfort. But anyway, what happened, there was a squadron of 34 Me-262s. That's a jet. That was a German jet. And the officer in charge was Buckner. That's the one who was in charge of it. And he was getting ready to attack the 398. The reason I know this is that I have a book. It's called The Diary of the 262. And it has a diary of every mission the 262s ever flew from the beginning to the end. And I was curious about that when I read the book. And I came to the date that we flew that mission. Sure enough, there it was. And I was telling his story, what happened that mission. He saw the 398 flying, and he was going to attack it until he saw these P-51s up there. And rather than attack us, he went ahead and attacked the P-51s. And there was a big dogfight up there. We couldn't even see it because it was far away at this point. So we're flying along, and the next thing you know, one of the 262s decides to attack us and sneak up on us in the rear. That's what they did. And they moved fast. They moved about at least 100 to 150 miles an hour faster than our P-51. So you couldn't really, it wasn't a fair fight. But anyway, he attacked us, and I was flying here. The plane that I was taking off of was over here, okay? And this plane came in at 262, the jet, and I don't see it because I'm in the front. It came in, flew right over us, and shot a couple of rockets right into the plane that was next to me, the one I was on. It killed the pilot and the co-pilot, and it knocked off a wing, and it was going down. So what happened is that was a question of luck. I was on that plane, they took me off. Now I'll never know why. These are some of the things that happened, are quirks of fate. Like when my father died and that bus crash, you know, I had several experiences just in that order, where I should have been here and I was there. Okay. At any rate, that plane went down, and I got to talk to the person who was a waist gunner on that ship that went down. He was the only survivor of it. And talking to him about that mission and what happened. And kind of interesting and gory. The plane was hit, and the first shell that came in hit the tail, and the tail gunner had his thumb severed right off. Boom, and he was carrying on. He was carrying on the back. So my friend went back there, took care of him, and then went back to his post. And no sooner he did that, then another shell did and took the whole tail off. So that tail gunner was gone. At any rate, the plane went down with the wing collapsed, and it was exploded in the air, crashed and everything. And that was what happened to that plane. And we were just lucky. We were very lucky. Okay, that was on February 22nd, to Stendhal. Okay. Now Durban is another mission. Okay. I was taking movies at this particular mission. We were going to bomb an oil depot. We flew over that target. We went over it 2 times. I didn't like to fly over it. The first time there was a lot of black smoke below. As a matter of fact, in my book, the picture that you see here, it's a painting actually, but I have movies of this, and the artist drew this picture from my movies. And there's all this black smoke down there. All the roads that you see here are actually exactly the way it was from the air. So at any rate, what happened is that I was taking movies of this bomb strike. As the bombs dropped out, I had my camera, and I was leaning over to get these pictures, and I got the picture. As soon as the bombs left the plane, there's a smoke marker on there. It's just a trail of smoke. So I never followed that all the way down, and actually you can see it on the film. And as soon as it hit, you can see the explosions, the flashes of red and white and whatnot. And after that happened, I sat up in the chair. I'm just saying, I hope these pictures come out. But I noticed the plane in front of me wasn't there anymore. It was gone. And out of the corner of my eye, I see a plane going down. It was spinning. It broke up, and it was on fire, and I saw it crash. But what happened while I'm watching that? And on the intercom, they say the lead plane's been hit on the tail. So I swung my camera around, and I started to take pictures of it, and I have that on my film too. It only took a few seconds to watch it and take the pictures, and it dropped out of formation. Tail gunner was blown out of the plane. He was sucked right out. When I was doing this here at home with the film, I was able to stop the frame, and I saw that the tail gunner, the tail of the ship, it went, the shell or whatever went right through the tail, right where you're sitting, and it left a big hole there. And next thing you know, you see him going out. Actually see him. So that's what happened there. He went right by our plane. But these are the things that happened. At any rate, that plane made it back to the base, and I have a picture of that back at the base with the tail missing. The pilot of that ship, by the way, he saw my films. I met him years later. His name was Bruce Daly, and we were good friends anyway. But he was a lead pilot, and I asked him what happened when that plane was hit. He said, I felt a jerk. I felt the thing, and I looked back there, and all I could see was blue sky, and that's what he told me. But anyway, he just died about a month ago. I'm sorry to hear that. He was 88 years old. Okay, that was that Durban mission. Once in a while, you get a chance to fly with another crew that's just starting out, and they do that because the crew feels comfortable with someone that flew several missions or many missions, and now they're flying with someone that's flew many missions, so he can advise them in certain situations. So at any rate, this was a nice young group of fellas flying their first mission, and when we landed, the mission was a success. When we landed, they wanted me to take a picture of the crew in front of the airplane. So he gave me a camera, and I took a nice picture of them. And that was it. I gave him the camera back, and that was it. The next day, we flew another mission, And after the mission, we usually go to the officers' club, and there was a bar there, and we'd have a few drinks. And I'm looking for this fellow that we flew with. And it turns out that the crew, that they were shot down the very next day. The plane I was on the day before. So these things, like I said, happen. You never know. You never know if you say goodbye to someone if it's going to be the last time or not. Okay, that was in Munich. Now, there's an interesting one here. We're supposed to fly a target on March the 14th. Now, I flew on the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. 13th is my birthday. And for some reason, I'll never know, we didn't fly that day. But the next day we flew. And we flew to this target that we were told that if we couldn't drop our bombs there, continue on, but they warned us that it's going to be pretty bad if you don't drop it there because there's a lot of flak areas. So it turns out that we couldn't drop our bombs. For some reason or another, they weren't dropped. We continued on our way to Osnabrück. And it was a pretty rough mission at that point. And we lost one plane. Now, it's interesting in this fact. I made a plaque for the Millville Air Museum. And the plaque was our bomb group with the squadron patches and the motto of our bomb group, which was called Hell from Heaven, by the way, the name of my book. And I have it there hanging on the wall, 398th Bomb Group. At any rate, this person who's an author, he happened to go there this day, and he happens to see this plaque. It said 398 Bomb Group, and he couldn't believe it because he wrote a book about three brothers who were in the war, and they all died. One was in the Marines in one of the islands. Another one was in the Army. I think it was France. He was killed. And then the other one was in the Air Force, the 398th Bomb Group. And he flew on March 14th, the same day I was flying. So I have an account of it from my vantage point. But he wrote a story about the three brothers and how each one died, what happened. And he wrote about that particular mission. The book is here that he wrote. It's called Three Gold Stars. And it's available. It's on the website. You can get it on the website. But it's a very good book. I read it, and it's really enjoyable. At any rate, that was that. We became good friends after that. Okay. Now, on April 21st, we flew a mission to Munich. Now, that was interesting, which we weren't supposed to fly in Munich. We were going to fly a short mission. The weather was pretty warm. It was comfortable. And I said to my co-pilot, we were the best of friends, I said, what do you say we just go up? We don't need heated suits. We all wore heated suits when we went on a long mission. Let's go up without the heated suits. We're only going to 10,000 feet. It's not going to be bad. Well, we get on the plane. Now, normally the plane was heated. We had a little heat in the plane. This time we get on the plane, and it's not the same plane, and there was no heat. So I said, well, it's only 10,000 feet, so it's not a big deal. I was wearing a jacket just like I have here. No heated suits or anything, just a jacket. Well, what happened, we no sooner are ready to take off, we hear that we're going to go to Munich instead of Cologne or some nearby thing. That meant all across Germany at 25,000 feet instead of 10. I said, what the hell am I going to do? I mean, we're going to freeze. Well, we couldn't stop and get our gear, so we just had to grin and bear it. Well, let me tell you, I never was as cold in my life. My feet were like blocks of ice, and I had to keep pounding the floor just to circulate the blood. And my navigator, my co-pilot, he was blessing me, I'm sure, all the time for suggesting it. So at any rate, it was kind of funny in a way because my pilot says, I hear flak. Well, above where I'm sitting is a dome. There's a little dome here, right here in the front of the ship, right there. That's where a navigator would take his celestial readings. And it's just a clear dome. And I was tall enough to stand in there and look around. So I looked at my pilot. And he's all upset. He says, where's this black coming from? And I started to laugh, and he happened to see me in there laughing. And then I told him. He was really ticked off about that. But at any rate, I call it the cold feet mission. And they were cold. Okay. I'll tell you another one. It was the last mission that we flew. It was to Pilsen, Czechoslovakia. It was called the Skoda Works. That's where they made munitions and tanks and cannons and all the things you needed for the German army. Now, they weren't working for the Germans, but they were prisoners in a way. They had to do what they said. And what they did with the guns, for instance, they would do something with the barrel so it wouldn't shoot straight. And they don't know. They shipped all these guns out to the different soldiers and everything. And if you shot there, they'd end up shooting there. And they had to take all the guns back. So it slowed up their progress that way. And they did it with all these things they did. They couldn't pin it on anyone. It's just one of those things. It's a mistake or whatever. But that's what happened. But at any rate, we're going to fly to the Skoda Works. Well, that was a long mission. It was past Munich, and that was it. We didn't know it was the last mission. As a matter of fact, the mission before that, I thought for sure it was going to be the end. We were in London, and I'm enjoying myself. And I said, well, this is the end of the war. The news and the armies were surrendering and everything. So we go back to the base. I said, guess what? We're going to fly a mission. We didn't know where it was going to be. I said, there's nothing left to bomb. Well, turns out that we got to the briefing room and we found out what we were going to do. So I said, what difference does it make if we bomb it or not? I mean, the war is going to be over in a matter of days, a week or two, the most. So what happened is that Churchill and Roosevelt were talking about the Skoda Works. This was a place that they didn't want the Russians to capture. Now, at that time, the Russians were advancing, they were pushing the Germans back, and they were getting close to Pilsen, and they would have taken that place. So Churchill and Roosevelt decided that let's bomb it. So that was the decision. We didn't know this. We just didn't know the reason for it. But we ended up getting on that plane, and we're about a half hour into the mission. Eisenhower broadcast to the Czech people that the 8th Air Force is flying in strength to bomb the Skoda Works in Pilsen. And about 11 o'clock, that's about the time we would be there. He told the whole story, and that was the first time it's ever done where they announced in advance where we were going to bomb. Now, we didn't know this, so if we had known it would have been, a nerve-wracking mission. It was nerve-wracking as it was. Anyway, we got to the base, to the Pilsen, and we were leading the 8th Air Force in, or eight squadrons, 8 bomb groups, and we were leading it in. But there was so much smoke that we couldn't drop the bombs there, and we continued around. Now, it continued around until they got to the very end of the bomb group. And what happened is that they continued around. The second time, they still didn't drop it. Now it's the third time we're going around. We go a third time, and we're at the tail end of this bomb group, and squadron, everything. We're just at the very end. And we finally dropped the bombs. But before we dropped the bombs, there was so much flak that 2 planes got hit and they went down. One crew, pilot's name was Ferguson. There were 5 on the plane that were executed. They were just shot. And one other one got shot too. But that was what happened to that crew. And the other plane went down, but these fellas were, they survived. But they had some interesting stories to tell. One of the fellows parachuted down, and he said he saw at a distance that someone saw little puffs of smoke, and it turns out that someone was shooting at him there. And that's what they tried to do. They tried to shoot the parachute men who were dropping down. And he looked in his chute, and it was full of holes. But he managed to get down. And as soon as he got down, he lands in the middle of a mortar fight between the Germans and the Americans. And right in the middle of all this, there's bombs exploding and whatnot. It turns out that he ran to the woods, And there he is in the middle of the woods, and he's sort of hiding. But while he's hiding there, he hears something like someone walking. He turns up, and there's two German soldiers coming towards him, and he didn't know what to do. So he pulls out his gun, and they had their gun, and they see him, and they raise their hands and surrender. Can you believe that? They all raised their hands, and he went over. He relieved them of their gun, and he lost his boots on the way down. And as soon as the chute opened, it comes with a shock. His boots went right off, and he was walking around without shoes or boots. He sees boots on this fella. They were the classic German black boots. You know, he looked at it, and he says, "The boots." The guy says, "9." He goes with the gun to his head. He says, "The boots." And that guy was more reasonable then. He took off the boots, and he has the boots. He still has the boots. I think I have a picture of the boots in this book here. At any rate, he took him he marched him back, and it was an American tank, and he got relieved of the prisoners. It turns out these prisoners weren't German soldiers at all. They were Jewish prisoners who escaped, and they were ready to be executed, but they escaped, and they had to change into. They saw some German soldiers on the ground. They were dead. They got their clothes, put them on. That's how they ended up with the German the uniforms. So that's what happened with that. Okay. Are there any questions? Because I could go on with other things, but any questions you want to answer? Need to answer? Yeah.
I got a question in reference to on these missions. About what percentage of aircraft B-17s were lost?
Well, this depended on the location where you're bombing. It depended on what period of time that you were flying missions. At the very beginning, we lost a lot of planes, a lot of them. And as time went on, when the Luftwaffe was weakened, there were less planes being lost. So, but we had some rough missions where we lost a lot of planes. There's one mission I didn't even mention to you, and I'll tell you about it right now. We were going to fly a mission with a very highly sensitive bomb. It was an RDX bomb, they called it. You ever hear that, RDX? It's a very highly explosive bomb. And we were flying this mission. The bombs were going to be dropped out one at a time. They couldn't drop out as a salvo. A salvo is when they all drop out at once. This is one at a time, so there's a space between them so they wouldn't touch. Well, when I dropped the bombs, I saw it, and I dropped mine, and next thing you know, we're pulling our doors open, and I didn't realize this was happening. But one plane was having a problem. What happened is that the plane couldn't drop the bombs. Something was wrong. So they couldn't go back with a load of bombs, and they continued on. Now they looked for a target of opportunity, a TO they call it, and they were going to drop it. Well, they flew on, and the next thing you know, they dropped it. But instead of dropping it one at a time, this guy salvoed it, and two bombs touched, and it caused an explosion that was so big, and it's bigger than anything I've ever seen. I knew it wasn't flak, but it knocked 6 planes down. 6 planes went down with that explosion. A piece of flak came into my where I was sitting, and went right by me. A piece went through the windshield of the pilot, huge hole right where he's sitting, but it missed him, and he was lucky. And at any rate, some of the stories you hear about the fellows who were captured, one fellow told a story, I may as well tell you now that it's on this. He was captured, and they were on a train, and they're taking him to Bremen, I believe it was. At any rate, they're taking him there, and they were going to get off and then be transferred to another train to take him to interrogation. While they're there, there was a lot of planes coming over B-17s. They thought it was going to be another bombing. But the people there all rushed, everyone rushed to a railroad. It was a railroad station, you know. They went in there, and the people, the German people, citizens, were kicking them and spitting on them, everything. The planes flew over, they didn't drop bombs. Had they dropped bombs, I think they would have killed them. But they didn't drop bombs because the town was pretty bad off. They didn't drop it, and after that happened, they were put on another train. And when they got on this train, he was looking out the window, he saw on the lampposts and some trees, the American airmen hanging on the way out. So all he remembers. Many of them were just being hung. So that's what happened when you went down. You didn't know whether you're going to survive the fall or what they do to you. So any other questions? I guess there are. Yeah?
How do you get the film developed without the security getting away?
Because I didn't take them to the security. Now, what I did, I went into London. I didn't know how I was going to do it either. I went to the Kodak place the first time. And I went in with one roll of film, and I said, you develop film? He said, yeah. I said, well, I have some film here that I want to have developed. Now, I wouldn't get back here for 2 weeks. So I said, I'll be back in 2 weeks for the film, if I make it. And it turns out that I made it. I went back, and they had an amphitheater, and there gets enough room for half as many people, not this many. And we sat there, and they ran it off. It was like a movie show. And the pictures, to my way of thinking, came out so good. It was perfect. And I was surprised because I didn't have a light meter, I didn't have anything, just had to use my judgment, what I thought it would be. So they worked out pretty good. And every time I went in there, I brought more film, and I took the other ones back. And I showed it just to one person. He happened to be Bruce Daly. He was the one that flew that ship with the tail off, and he really liked those pictures. And I don't think he knew I took pictures of his plane being hit, but I sent him that about 50 years later. He got the pictures.
Give us the camera specifications you used and the size of the rifle.
Okay, I had a Bell & Howell 16 millimeter camera. And I took 100 feet of film on each mission. I couldn't change film in the middle of the mission. It's not like now where it comes sealed and you put it in. And it's all loose and you had to thread the thing and all. So when we flew, I usually loaded it up before the mission, and I had about 5 minutes of film taking whenever any mission. So I had to be selective what I was going to take. I wish I could have taken more, but I'd run out of film. So I took what I thought was
Tell
important.
them how you got it.
Yeah.
Tell them how you got it.
Oh yeah, how I got it.
The film.
You mentioned that, all right. I went over with 3 rolls of film, and I used that one of those rolls for the mission. I went into a Grosvenor Square officers club after I saw the pictures, and I went in there and I was going to eat and hit the bar, and I saw a fellow that was in our barracks here, in our Quonset hut, and he says, and I said, you remember the pictures I took? I told him. He said, yeah. I said, those pictures came out so good you wouldn't believe it. And while I'm talking to him, the fellow was over, and he says, what kind of film do you use? I said, 16 millimeter. He said, I can get you what you want. So I said, give me your name and where I could reach you. And he did that, and I'll call you up. Well, that was on a Saturday. This is now Sunday. And morning, I figured, let me call him up now before it's too late. And I called him up. I got him on the phone, and he didn't remember about what he told me. I said, how am I going to make him believe me? So I said, do you know this fellow? His name is Ed Brace, that guy I was talking to. He said, yeah. Well, you remember I was talking to him and you came over? And then there was a big hesitation. He said, yeah, I remember now. I said, well, you promised me that you could get me some film. He said, all right, I'll meet you. And I met him at a place, and we took a bus, I guess it was, and we went to the armory. And in the armory, knocked on the door, the sergeant opened the door, and we went in. And he said, where do you keep the 16 millimeter film? And he walked down a couple of rows, and it was a big place. And there were wooden crates. There were a whole bunch of wooden crates. He pried one open, and there it was, all these films, with the Excelsior, that stuff in there with the film. And I started to load up. I had him use that bag with me. I filled him up, and he says, the guy says, do you want some color film? this is black and white, Super Double X. It was a really good film. I said, man, I love that, but I was too embarrassed to put the black and white back, so I kept that, and now I loaded up as much in the color. I was weighted down, you wouldn't believe it. It's heavy stuff when you carry that film around. So at any rate, I took that, and I was so glad to get back to the base with that. I kept that, and that was enough to see me through the war. I mean, I had a lot of film. Yeah.
How many missions did you end up with?
31 and a half. On one mission, we ran out of oxygen where I was, and we never would have made it back. So I told him, the pilot, I can't go. I gotta have air. So we turned around, came back, and that was an aborted mission. They didn't like that, but the commanding officer, when I told him, he said, well, why'd you do that? I said, wait a minute now. Let's put you in my place. What would you do? You're flying at 15,000 feet, and you need oxygen, and you're on your way to a target, and you know you're not going to have enough oxygen left because you're losing air. What would you do? Okay, you're right. And that was the end of that.
You've got 31 missions in 4 months?
From January to April, yeah. It's about 4 months. Yeah.
Do you have a problem with the high B-17 dropping bombs and on top of you?
Well, the way they were, don't forget, the way they were, they didn't fly directly over us. They were always on the side. We flew in a wing position, you know. And the bombs, when they would drop, they were going as fast as the airplane. So even if there was a plane nearby, underneath, the bombs would drop and continue on, and they dropped straight down. So, you know, if you look at the bomb strikes, and you'll see in the pictures if you get a chance here, that the bombs are directly right angles, straight down. That's where they hit.
Did you put any of your film on video?
Yeah, I have it all on video.
Take some of the film.
Yeah, I have some of it here. Go ahead. Go ahead. What?